Hi, this is Stacia, and I wanted to share a game I played on chess.com tonight against Melonhead, rated 1684, and I was rated 1611. And yeah, pretty violent game, as a lot of mine are these days. So after e4, my opponent played the Sicilian, and I have to admit I was very happy to see this, unlike in the past. And the reason is I have a theme per month for my studies. And my theme for the month of March was to study the Smith-Morra Gambit, and specifically in the book um, Mayhem and the Morra by Marc Esserman. So I had looked at this opening D4, the Smith-Morra Gambit, for a full month, and I feel like I've learned a lot, but more than that, my interest in the opening is way higher than it was at first. Way higher, because I actually didn't like this opening at first. Okay, so my opponent took. I played c3, as you do, offering up a pawn, and my opponent did take. So we have a Smith-Morra accepted here. He played knight c6. This is the normal move. And now I played knight f3. So this is basically the main line so far. And now my opponent has a couple choices he could do here. He could go g6 and play the dragon against this. He could go a6 as sort of a flexible but useful move, I see. And also maybe like d6 or e6 would be normal here. My opponent chose to go e6. I played bishop c4. This is normal, and we're still in theory here. And now my opponent played g6, and I do consider this to be a mistake. The computer doesn't think it's that bad. Well, let me see for a second. It's giving white plus 0.7, which is a lot when you're down a pawn. So, yeah, okay, this is a mistake. Computer wants to play a6 or d6. Makes a lot of sense. But this move, g6, the problem is you really shouldn't play this if you've already played e6, because now the dark squares are just really weak, and the Morra is too violent and attacking open to create these kind of weaknesses. All right, I castled. I really thought about e5 here, but I think it's premature. Castles is probably best. And now a6 was played. So another pawn move. The thing is, though, I actually thought this was okay because I would like to put my knight on b5. So, and if I can get into the d6 square, I'll be doing good. So if he, let's say he did normal development like bishop g7, yeah, computer's giving knight b5 is the best move. This was my thought as well. And it's already giving king f8. Yeah, because I'm threatening this, and it's not fun. You know, he can't really just develop normal anymore because I could go knight d6 check, or even stronger is queen d6. And I think this just wins the game because of knight c7. Yeah, it's giving queen e7, but can't I can check. King f8, and then we'll take. And this should be good enough, I think, to win. So, okay. So I'm happy to see that the computer's confirming my suspicion that knight b5 is sort of a threat on the next move. But I went queen e2. Again, I was thinking about e5. Looks like the computer does like this move the best. And I can't tell you why, because I don't know. But okay, queen e2 is not losing or anything, but it seems to not be accurate. And then my opponent played bishop g7. Okay, so it was at this point in the game that I decided to play e5. So the reason I like this move, well, I'm not sure about it, is that it does block out the bishop, and it is supported. And my real main goal here was to stop the move d6. I wanted to stop this move. So, computer says black should just go b5 now, or maybe knight g to e7. Makes sense. Even f5 is a move here, which I kind of want to look at. I'm not so familiar with this. So if f5, what should we do? Probably just develop, it says. So we don't take, because that would help black develop. We don't want to allow that. Oh, and it wants bishop b3. So I think the computer likes to just be prophylactic about this push. Because when black gets this with tempo, then their bishop comes to b7. And I mean, the whole thing is that when you're sacking a pawn in the opening, you don't want to allow your opponent to untangle so easily. Because if they do, then you're just down a pawn, you know? So, okay. Interesting, though. So after e5, my opponent played d5. Okay, and this isn't as good as f5, because this I can actually take. And the reason it's good here is because my king is castled, and his king is in the center. And whenever this is the case, and you have like a lead in development like white has right now, like notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces developed, and he has 1, 2. So for that reason, opening up the middle of the board is going to be really good for white here. Okay, and he surprised me here. I thought he should just go queen takes d6, although I'm not seeing that as a move. Is there something wrong with this? Rook d1 maybe? Ooh, rook d1 does win. I'm not sure why, but I know it wins. Computer says so. Yeah, queen b8, kind of a sad move to make. And then this classic sacrifice is working, because it's not even a sacrifice. There's a pin down the e-file. Yeah, so that's the other benefit of taking en passant here, is that now the queen is on this open e-file, and that pins the e-pawn. So as a result, the d5 square is available for my pieces. So pretty interesting. Now my opponent did surprise me here. He played bishop takes c3. And I'm not entirely sure why he did that. I don't think that's a good move. It's probably a bad mistake, and I will consult the computer. Yeah, it is. Computer just wants knight f6. Makes sense. Sorry about all the arrows. What is that? I've never seen this before. Oh. 1 second. I'm going to turn that off. I turned on this new option to show variations window, and nothing happened when I turned it on, but apparently something did happen, and now my computer is slowing down. My apologies. Okay, it was under moves, show variations window. I'm going to take that off. Okay, bear with me here. Okay, so after b takes c3, I mean, I was shocked to see this move, because not only does it give me the bishop pair, which is nice, but now this guy, my dark square bishop, is gonna be a problem for him. He's already aimed at these weak squares. Now I know the knight's there for the moment, but I mean, just imagine like my bishop and my queen entering these dark squares, and maybe my knight on g5. I mean, this is just too difficult to defend all those dark squares. So now he plays queen d6, and now I played the most natural move in the world, rook d1. So developing my rook with tempo, It's on a nice open file now. And the queen went to e7. So apparently this is a huge mistake I'm noticing. Computer wants the queen on c7. And if I had to guess, I think the reason is that I can play bishop f4 now. And if the queen goes to c7, I don't have bishop f4, you know. But I do have bishop a3, so I don't know. But my dark square bishop is just like foaming at the mouth looking at the dark squares over here. Okay. But queen e7 was played, and yeah, I should play bishop f4. I went bishop g5. Now this is a mistake because knight f6 is just fine, and so is f6. All right, so during the game, I actually thought this move was not good for black. Computer seems to think it's okay, but the thing is, too, it's hard to always trust computer analysis because what I mean by that is sometimes the computer will play bad moves because in a particular position, that bad move is still the best move. You know what I mean? Like out of all the bad choices, maybe f6 is the least bad. But, you know, logically, though, black does not want to play this move. The e pawn is weaker now. The squares around the king are weaker. And I don't think I have any problem with dropping back to e3. Maybe I'll come to c5 one day. Maybe I'll come to a6, or b6, I mean. I could even drop back and go to a3. Like, so I was happy to see f6. Also, this takes the f6 square away from the knight. So I thought this is where this knight really wants to be, you know. And he probably wants to come to d5 at some point. But now the knight's not coming to d5. So I really liked my position here, even though the computer only gives white a slight plus. But I am down a pawn, so that means my position's pretty good. Alrighty, so now he played b5, which undefends a knight. So, I mean, his idea must be bishop b7. But here, yeah, after bishop b7, wow, I have a winning move that I did not see during the game. And actually, there's quite a few winning moves. And, okay, so I know that sometimes I go too deep into lines, but this is what I would call a very critical moment of the game. And it looks like there's a lot of ideas that win on the spot. And I did not play one. I played the move rook d2. And although I'm still winning here, there were 3 other moves that are stronger. So I want to look at those and look at what ideas are behind these moves. So c4 is a move. Okay, knight d4 is a move. And also a4. Okay, a4, very interesting. So I'm seeing now that with a4, we're actually threatening to take on b5. Well, maybe not. I was going to say this pawn is pinned, but actually the bishop is defending here. But let's have a look at a4. I just want to see. Now, if I were black, man, I really want to get this knight developed, and I can't. I guess I'd go king f7. I don't know what to do. King f7, I guess. This does help to reinforce the e-pawn. Actually, this e-pawn's in a lot of trouble. Is that the main point here? So after a takes b5, a takes b5, we would take here, bishop takes back, and now I like this move. Bishop c5 is the idea, and if the queen were to take the bishop, which is probably best, then we have queen takes e6 check, king g7, and the rook's coming in as well, rook d7 check, and yeah, this looks really unpleasant for black, but I am nervous about my position being a little too loose. I don't know, maybe black just never will get a move again or something, you know. Let's play queen f7. Okay, I'm really nervous about back ranks, but there is no way to do it, so queen f7 is working. Queen f5 and queen g7 check and king h5. Okay, so yeah, I would definitely want to play this position. So it turns out the idea behind a4 is really this move. Bishop c5, and we're going to attack e6. And you know what? I actually think I understand why all these moves are good now. It's the fact that bishop b7 moved away from the e-pawn. So this e-pawn is now x-rayed by the bishop and the queen. That's basically what I missed. And so like all these moves are basically centered around that threat. All right, but I played rook d2, which is an improving move, but it's not as good as some of those other moves. Rook d8 was played, and now I played rook a to d1. So I actually could take the rook here, and knight takes is a pretty sad move, and queen takes is a sad move too, because my other rook would come in with tempo. But I played here. So in the game, oh, I thought he took. He didn't. He played king f7. He should take, though. Yeah, and now, wow, that bishop c5 move is a thing again. So I'm going to remember this little trick. That's nice. So, I mean, that's what I would call a decoy. You know, we're going to say, hey, come get the bishop. And then when black does that, we take this e6 pawn with check, and the attack is just brutal from this point. But after king f7, I liked my move. Let's see if the computer agrees. I found a little tactic here, and that's the move bishop takes e6 check. And the reason I played this move is because if black captures with the queen, again, it's sort of a decoy because I can take the rook now, and notice the queen's no longer defending. So after knight takes, rook takes, and this is a great position for me. I guess we're like equal material. I'm not sure. There's a knight, a bishop, queen, queen, rook, rook. But if you look at white's pieces compared to black's pieces, it's just an overwhelming advantage here. Not to mention the king's not safe. So I would definitely be very happy in that position. So you can't really do that. And the other thing after bishop takes e6, since we looked at this, is king takes. And I mean, of course, this is terrible. I mean, I'd probably just play bishop c5 check, right? I think this wins. King f7, I'm going to take the queen. Yeah, just take the queen. Simple enough. And that should win the game as well. Okay, so I really liked bishop takes e6 for that reason. But of course, he doesn't have to take here. And he doesn't. He plays king e8, although this is extremely awkward. Yeah, so here I play bishop d5, and now I'm just threatening to take the knight. And if I manage to take this and he takes with the bishop, well, then I'll take rook takes on d8 check, queen takes, rook takes, king takes, and I'm up a rook for a queen. So that would win. So he played knight a5. I actually calculated this move because I realize now that if I take on b7, I think it's a mistake. Oh, the computer says you can play this way. Okay, well, let's look at it. I thought this is a mistake because he can take here and the knight is defending the rook. I kind of call that a boomerang tactic, when the knight jumps away and then jumps back and defends something it needs to defend or recaptures something. But I can still play this way, apparently. After knight takes d8, everything wins. Yeah, why is that? Why is that? Like even a4 wins, c4 wins, queen d3 wins. Well, let's follow the line and see what we can learn about this position. So computer wants king f7, makes sense. We could take, let's say takes back. Oh, we're going to take with the queen. Yeah, and I think it really comes down to the fact that the king is unsafe, this knight can't really move, and this rook has never moved and will never move. And so white is winning because white is up a minor piece and a rook. That's my feeling on this. All right, so that's our conclusion there. And we're almost done with the game. Thanks for bearing with my detailed analysis. King e8. All right. So after this move, I played bishop d5, like I said, attacking that knight. Knight e5 was played. And now I found a move that I'm really happy I found, because I've been studying candidate moves, and I remembered that in this position. And when you're looking at candidate moves, the first thing you want to look at is checks, right? Well, I have a few checks. Well, really just two. I have bishop c6 check, which doesn't work because that square is guarded twice. But I also have this check, bishop f7 check. And when I looked at this, I was like, wait a minute, can I play that? Because the thing is, I do have discoveries against this rook. So I did play this move, bishop f7 check, and I think this just wins on the spot. If the king takes, I can take the rook, and that's, a rook for a bishop. And if the queen takes, again, I can take the rook. Check, and actually, this looks really, really bad. King e7, and I mean, mate in 2, king e6. How about just discoveries? Bishop c1 check. Yeah, and I think this is the only move, isn't it? Oh, maybe king f5. So if king f5, we have knight d4, checkmate. It's kind of pretty. I like how these diagonals are covered. So after bishop f7 check, my opponent did resign instantly. So apparently he spotted it as well. So very happy with this game. I mean, obviously, I like to win occasionally. And this was the first time I ever broke 1600 on chess.com. So even though I've been as high as 1791 USCF, yeah, I've never managed to break 1600 on chess.com. So it took a long time, and I'm just I always celebrate small victories. I think that's really important when you're aiming for improvement, to celebrate every tiny victory. And also, I was really happy to get a Smith-Morra Gambit game since I have been studying this diligently. So let's go through it one last time and just look at the highlights of the game. I'm going to now turn off the engine. So the opening was all in book here, and black definitely made a mistake with the move g6. I know in the book they said this is bad, so that's how I knew that, because of all these weakened dark squares. And a6, I remember the idea of knight b5 is stopped. Knight b5, knight d6, or even queen d6, so that's actually kind of a good move. And after bishop g7, I did play e5. Yeah, here is interesting that f5 is a move. That might be a resource for me to think about in the future. But in the game d5, here I followed the principle of opening the center when I'm safe and have better development. And this move, this just might be what I would call the losing move in the game. g6 was bad enough. It's just the wrong plan. You can't really play e6 and g6. He should have went d6, then g6, I think is better. But also this move, giving up this dark square bishop for a knight and to isolate my pawn, doesn't really work in the Smith-Morra Gambit. Because really, I mean, I guess he was planning on giving me a bad pawn structure for the endgame. But the problem is, if you don't get to the endgame, then this pawn on c3 won't matter. And indeed, that is what happened this particular game. Rook d1, very natural. Yeah, and here I think it's interesting that queen c7 should be played to stop bishop f4. And note that with a pawn on c3, there is no rook c1 eyeing the queen. The pawn is in the way. All right, this move. Yeah, f6. So a move that the computer says is okay, but I just can't buy into that. That looks terrible for black. And as you notice, this knight never does get in the game, which means this rook never gets in the game. So I'm sure the computer has some strange way of getting out of this, but it just looks bad. Bishop b3, bishop b7. Yeah, and I did not notice that bishop b7 undefended the e-pawn. I only later noticed I could take this tactically, but that is something I'm going to keep in mind, is that this e-pawn can be weak after bishop b7. I do recall that in the book too, so I didn't recall that during the game. Yeah, and now I think this is fine. Everything's winning probably. But one of my biggest problems is that I get good positions and I don't find a way to actually win the game. And then I end up with like some small advantage in the end and sometimes blunder and lose. So this game, I did find this move. Bishop takes e6 check. And here, I like this plan. I think this is fine. Knight a5. I saw knight a5, which I'm happy about as well. Yeah, but now bishop f7 check. Now, I didn't plan this move, so it would have been even better if I saw this ahead of time, but I'm glad I at least saw it. I've been working so hard on tactics, so it's like, if I can play even a small one like this, then I'm pretty happy with that for the time being. So king takes f7. Wasn't even played, or was it played in the game? No, it was bishop f7 check and resigns. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.